We are so happy to have you here. I'm Cynthia Gutierrez, and I'm the chair of Gonzaga Dance. And thank you. This project has been in the works for nearly 2 years, and so the fact that we get to be here together with Karin and her dancers and our Gonzaga dancers and bring it to life is really quite exciting. I want to make sure that if you haven't already scanned the QR code, in the spirit of conservation, we chose to not print a paper program. So if you haven't had a chance to scan the QR code for the program, they are posted in the back of the theater. The program will give you lots of helpful information to follow through. It's something you can refer to later. Karin has listed the artists that she's collaborated with that you can go back and look at closer at their work. I have a few thank yous. First of all, I want to thank Karin Stevens and her company for coming all the way from Seattle to show us this incredible work tonight. I want to thank Stephen Cummings and the whole team at Myrtle. I have to pinch myself all the time when I'm in here to say, wow, this is our home. We get to be here all the time. It's really just incredible, and the whole crew here has been working tirelessly to make this happen. I also want to thank our fearless leader, our technical director, Maria Sorsi. She's like Batman, like you maybe don't see her, but she's always doing the good work for the people. And if you don't know this concert is run in partnership with the Myrtle Woldson technical team as well as our advanced production class. So students are backstage, they are in the booth, they are calling cues, and it's just another example of what we try to do here at Gonzaga Dance to give our students real-world experience. So thank you. Can we just give them a hand? Amazing. Yes. In a moment, I'm going to have Brian Henning from the Institute, from the Climate Institute, who we've been partnering with, come up, and I'm going to have Karin come up and also share a little bit about what you're going to see. But the last thing is, you know, if they don't let you be chair around here of any department if you're afraid to ask for money. So I checked the box, I passed the interview, and in your program, you will scroll down and you'll see an opportunity to give to the Gonzaga Dance Endowment. Work like this that you're about to see tonight is really critical at this time. Karin is creating work about endangered resources on our planet. And I'll say it as long as they let me keep saying it, the arts are also endangered in this country. And so if you feel the work that we're doing is important not only to support artists like Karin, and not only to support Gonzaga dancers having this kind of experience, it's also for the extended Spokane community and beyond. So these projects require a lot of funding. And so if you feel inclined, I would ask you to scroll through and click on that link and give. Any gift matters, so we appreciate you being here. All right, Brian, you want to come on up?
Thank you, Cynthia. Good evening, everybody. My name is Brian Henning. I'm a professor of philosophy and environmental studies, and I have the pleasure of directing the Institute for Climate, Water, and the Environment, one of the co-sponsors of this event. When we were invited to consider co-hosting this, we just jumped at it. We've long been wanting to look for an opportunity to collaborate with the arts here at Gonzaga, and this is a wonderful opportunity to do that. Addressing the climate crisis is why we exist. We try and help our community in the Inland Northwest understand and respond to a rapidly changing climate. And part of that is a technical challenge. Part of that is decarbonizing our energy and transportation as quickly as we can. Some of that is helping those who are most vulnerable survive the next heat wave or not get sick during the intense periods of wildfire smoke. There's real urgent work that we're helping to do in the community. But part of our vision is also that we have a worldview transformation project that we're helping participate in and contribute to. And I can't think of anything that does that more than the arts. And so we're so glad to be able to partner on that tonight. Quick shout out to some of my colleagues, Carly Holmbein, and especially the wonderful Caitlin Carroll. If you could give them a round of applause. One of the things that they made possible is earlier today in the matinee, there were like 500 kids here in the auditorium, school-age children where you are, and they were riveted. And it was a wonderful experience being exposed to the arts and to these messages. And so I'm so glad you're here tonight. And thank you, Karin, for sharing your art with us.
Thank you, Brian.
I just want to say thank you to Cynthia. She's been a wonderful host. And I also want to take a moment to thank another person, Suzanne Oster-Smith. You see in the back row there. Thank you. This really began because of her relationship to the Seattle International Dance Festival and Cyrus Kambata. And they were scheming behind my back. And Cyrus was telling Suzanne about a work that I did in 2019 called See Change Within Us. And she wanted to bring it to Gonzaga. But remember what happened in 2020? Yeah, so it was a work that meant a lot to me. I wanted to have larger conversations around the work. And then it kind of died on the vine. And so 2 years ago, when she wanted me to recreate and revive this, I was a little overwhelmed. And but she had a vision and a faith that I think moved through us, and so much fell in place. We're going to be performing this work in Seattle in a month at the Seattle Art Museum's Olympic Sculpture Park, which is an incredible opportunity for us. And so thank you for making that happen. I also want to say it was really meaningful today to begin this piece with 500 school children, and for that to be the first performance of this recreated version, to share it with the youth, who I hope had a moment or moments of inspiration about, I don't want to say change the world. I heard someone say today, we need to build community. We need to build connections across our divided lines. And I really hope that they will see a vision for themselves in that from the work today. I also want to say it means a lot to me to be at Gonzaga, in particular because it is a Jesuit institution. As I hope many of you know, part of their mission is not only reconciliation among humanity, but with the earth. And you'll see that that's really important to me tonight. And I also want to say that one of my favorite thinkers is a Jesuit, a scientist from the mid-century, Teilhard de Chardin. And mystically and seeing into the future, he said something around, once we figure out how to harness the energies of the waves, the tides, he could have said the sun, which we figured out. At the end of it, he said, we will have discovered fire for the second time. So the first fire, right? We discovered fire. It helped us burn things and build technologies, and here we are today. That second fire that he was speaking of in the middle of this quote is harnessing the energies of love. And that is what drives me, is a love for all of you, a love for working with these beautiful humans who share this vision for something better than what we're experiencing, a love for the wild salmon and for the orca and for the elements. And you'll hear someone today, you'll hear Dr. Brian Henning's voice in there today, and Dr. Nigel, I don't know where he is, from Gonzaga, and you'll hear another voice, Shenawa, and you can go to, I think the link, program links to these various interviews that I conducted that came into the second version. And she says that the earth keeps giving back to us unconditionally. So that love is, to use Elia Delio's words, who was a great scholar of Teilhard. She was a physicist, or she is a physicist, and a Franciscan sister, I believe. She writes extensively about how love is a movement. It is evolution. And this evolution, this love, is what we can think of as God. You don't have to define it that way if you don't want to. But I want to think tonight about how we move in movements of love that is strong and humble. So if you just take a moment to join me, that it's about our whole bodies, starting with our hearts that move out in concentric circles through our shoulders and down through our viscera and our legs and out through our hands and our tailbone and our head. And just take a moment to breathe a breath into your lungs. Your lungs are over 80% water. So take a moment. I invite you to close your eyes if you want. Hopefully you've exhaled already. And take another breath in and see if you can breathe down into your feet. That we're also not just water bodies, but we are an earth body. And that we need to root and center from our hearts down into the earth and find our grounding. It's not just some silly thing on Instagram these days, how we all need to get grounded and earthed, but it is real. It's not a light thing. So feel your weight as you inhale and exhale, and feel your weight drop into your seat. Your first root was your pelvis, if you can remember all the way back to being about 6 months old. And you were sitting up and reaching for the world. And take a big breath in and bring down that enlivened sky, to quote Rilke. Opening to sky. One of my saints is Mary Oliver. She asks a bunch of questions. One of the final questions is, who can imagine in what heaviness the rivers remember their original clarity? Then she goes on to say, strange questions, yet I have spent worthwhile time with them, and I suggest them to you also. That your spirit grow in curiosity, that your life be richer than it is, that you bow to the earth as you feel, not just think, as you feel how it actually is. And then she goes on to say that we humans, that we so clever and ambitious and selfish and unrestrained, are only one design of the moving, the vivacious many. We give a nod to the southern resident Orca, and I just want to say that there's been a lot to grieve, and Mother Tahlequah and Alki last week have shown us their grieving process. But I do want to say today, and I think it happened around the time that we were dancing, there's a human in this work, in quite a bit in the Salmon, Rivers, Salmon, Dam, Orca section, and they use they, them pronouns. They speak a lot in there, and they sent me a text today. Lucy is their name. Lucy was on the ferry from Seattle to Vashon, and the J-pod appeared with a baby calf. And indeed, Lucy looked up and then also sent me the link that a baby calf from the same J-pod where we lost a baby last week, and also in January and in 2018, this baby was born and looks to be thriving. So we don't know if it's a male or female, and the female, southern residents are matrilineal. So we want to keep bringing the females back. But I just think that was a really special thing to share with you all tonight. Thank you for being here, and I hope it touches you somewhere in your heart and moves you out the door to make movements that overcome the mistakes and the harms of the past, and that are still happening today. Thanks.
The last thing I'll say is that at the end of the show, we'll have a moment for people to leave if you have some dessert date that you need to get to quickly. But if not, if you are so inclined, we'd invite you to stay for a short Q&A with a panel after the show to share your thoughts. So thank you. Enjoy the show.
In the midnight of survival. Nocturne for J, K, and L pod. Every story has a scent that only some can smell. Salmon in the cedar, salt in midair, water's curved shoulder, algae brown in the sun. Every story has a scent that only some can smell. All we fighting our way home. Every stream perfumed with fins and footsteps. Every eelgrass bed an anthem. Every tide a nocturne. See, we sing the river. See, we stomp the dam. People who hear me in the salt waves, people who taste me in the breach, gape-mouthed, tongue-brined by awe. Listen, my body is a song transcribed, a symphony on skin. Each saddle patch an orchestra, each note a difference. Sing the body black and white. Sing an Orca song. Every story has perfume, every song a single note, every wail a river in a tangled throat, every tide a nocturne, every stream perfumed, every eelgrass bed an anthem. All we finding home.
is there a way that we can redefine what we are as a species to conceive of ourselves as a member of a wider community of life?
Water is powerful. It shapes the land and it finds new ways to flow. It's a part of us. We are water.
Ultimately, water goes down to the ocean, which is the lowest place on the earth, And there's that teaching of saying, humble yourself.
There's so much anger and divisiveness in the world right now. Coming together and having a sense of unity would change a lot of things. We only get one Earth.
Common sense seems to be a rare thing to have these days, because when you observe these things happening, surely common sense would show you that our interconnection and our interrelationship with them.
I remember seeing a sign that basically said, "Don't eat the fish," or "Don't eat the crab." That was the first time where I understood the impact of humans on our ecosystem.
We're seeing atmospheric flows and these storms that dump more rain on us in one night than we've seen historically.
If you look at the harms that are created in our communities, oftentimes you see certain communities be impacted more than others.
The elements and the water, they don't have borders and boundaries. Borders and boundaries are created by humans.
It's the fresh water and the threat of losing that I think is what scares me for the future.
You can just imagine how beautiful that used to be. Now it's an industrial area where it's been a dumping ground for a number of toxic chemicals.
It's not a one-stop shop problem. It's throughout the whole water cycle.
You see, oftentimes, when we talk about climate change and the policies to mitigate it, communities that are least likely to be engaged in that process are the ones that are most harmed.
Everything was kind of starting to fall apart, and it had something to do with the way that space was being managed by people.
If you look at the number of extreme heat events, now you're seeing them happen probably 3 or 4 times every single year, which has this tremendous impact on our ecosystem. From marine wildlife dying in droves because of the heat, we're seeing our snowpacks melt faster, which means that the water runs faster earlier, so we see flooding.
What was once an abundant food source for the entire ocean still exists, but it can no longer sustain the ocean the way it's supposed to.
We have to come together if we want to make change. To take care of the one home that we have, we won't get a second chance. The problem on the Columbia River is the Snake is a tributary of the Columbia. The Snake River populations have significantly dwindled since the 60s. The dams have been up since then, and the returns of the salmon have significantly dropped. Ultimately, we're trying to get the dams to be removed. The dams prevent the successful return of the salmon. There's still salmon that returns, but they're not the size that they used to be. They're not the numbers that they used to be for them to thrive. There's 4 specific dams on the Snake River that are being targeted to be removed. People believe that these dams are green. They're not. They cause the river to be stagnant and to therefore release methane. The temperature of the Snake River has increased and it makes it unsurvivable for the salmon. It's only getting hotter. That isn't an environment for salmon to thrive in, and ultimately it's not going to be an environment that we can thrive in. You can find the salmon DNA all the way back in Idaho in the trees. They are so vital and so important for the ecosystem, and if we don't have that, what is that going to do? 137 species rely on salmon, and so if we take out that factor, if there ends up not being any more salmon, you're looking at so many more factors that happen from that. We can't replace what nature is able to do on its own. You can't mess with things like that. You have to let nature thrive and to be what it was. It's time to stop messing around and to know of how important everything is. We're running out of time, and if we don't make the changes necessary, we're not going to have things left. It's going to look vastly different. It's just dire, and we don't have time to waste.
It's not just one species issue. When you look at salmon, they're called a keystone species for a reason, and it's a great umbrella species to stand behind because the habitat we protect for them is also a habitat we protect for future generations and for tribal and non-tribal folks alike. I would love for all generations of future Washingtonians to be able to still go out and fish for salmon.
It's like the damming of a river. When you dam the river, you block the flow of the water, and the water is life. So you dam the river, now no life, the Chinook salmon, they can't come through until you open the gate, but you're changing the ecosystem of that water. It's getting warm, it's getting stagnant, and so the body is a lot like that. If it stays that way and continues to block that energy, then it can manifest into a greater illness. This body is a microcosm of the macrocosm. There's been a real push in society to make people forget their connection to the earth. It's about remembering our inherent birthright of that connection that is always there giving us life. That this water is one of the main medicines on this earth. They say if you lived a really good life, you would be honored to come back as an orca. They are our relatives. They are watching over us. They're connected to us. They're much, much older than us. They've been on the planet much longer. They are very intelligent and very conscious and loving. There is a concern that as they continue to pass on, that there aren't any elders among their pods that can share the wisdom that they need to teach the young ones.
Their numbers have significantly dwindled. They were at 75 at one point, the southern residents, and we watched how many calves that were missing or passed away, and so it's like they can't thrive. It all comes back down to the amount of food. They hung out at the mouth of the Columbia, bouncing back and forth. The Columbia River makes up but at least half of their diet. How are they supposed to have enough salmon? It's literally impossible. People are saying, sound pollutants, which yes, but the food, how many times do we say, food is what it sustains everyone, it's what drives everyone. If you don't have enough, how are you going to sustain? How are you going to thrive? People are often like, well, they're the residents, they only live in the Sound. No, they travel up to 100 miles a day. The mouth of the Columbia sustains the majority of their travel. They only eat fish. They have like a specific hunting method and a specific tradition that they are taught. That's what makes them such incredible beings, because they're able to teach their generations of this livelihood and how they live. And so what right do we have to say, no, you don't get that. They were here before we were. It is our time to give that up, to sacrifice, to move on and to make other connections, and just to give them a chance to thrive.
when I saw the first time that Tahlequah was carrying her dead baby around, she was showing all of humanity, this is what's happening, because I know that you're not underneath the ocean seeing my world. I'm carrying my child that I've just lost to show you that it is serious and that we are on one planet. We have one water. It's all connected. It's not just for her and for the southern residents, it's for all species.
When sea waves come at the surface into the sea ice, it breaks it up. And it can be small, like a few feet across, or vast, like miles, without any interruption. So near the ice edge, it's interacting with these surface waves. You can imagine sort of breathing with the surface waves. You feel like you can see just forever. Just infinity. We have to come back into the body through the movement. We have to come back to the breath, and we have to be able to stop the mind and become quiet and become still. So stillness and movement coexist. And if we're just racing off all the time, then we never come back to stillness and we can get lost. your internal world is just as vast or even more vast than the outer world. It's infinite. It's infinite, and we are infinite.
People should know what we would lose when we lose the ice. It's not just ice disappearing and now we have a shipping channel through the North Sea, but what have we lost in the process? If we lose the ice, we lose the microbes. If we lose the microbes, we lose the food for everything else. go from microbes to small crustaceans to larger things like crab and fish. Those things feed the seals. Everything collapses as we lost the ice.
Since the industrial age has come about, we've already made a significant mark.
The world is changing. Out here on the coast specifically, we're seeing flooding and sea level rises and breaches in our storm walls that we haven't seen before. The tribe is moving towards relocating all those residents up and out of harm's way. They're facing the impacts of what happens if the ocean comes in further.
You're seeing now whole communities be impacted by flooding, which have never been done before.
What happens when an entire coastal population comes inwards, trying to basically just survive? At that point, one's ideology is going to be irrelevant. It doesn't matter at that point. What they think about politics, what they think about left versus right, conservative versus liberal, none of that is going to matter at that point. It's going to come down to survival.
Oftentimes, people decide based on their ideology who they want to listen to. And what arguments they're willing to hear and what they're not willing to hear.
that climate change presents is that it forces you to think across silos.
80% of the evangelicals went with Trump it all, and I am not in that camp. And so it's interesting to be in this minority of people that see things. Other people who may have similar beliefs don't see.
I went into like a panic attack for like 2 weeks. I was just like, what do I do? There's nothing to do. And so I was just racking my brain for what I could contribute.
Ideology.
Think across silos.
I am not in that camp.
Ideology.
Contribute.
Think across silos.
I am not in that camp.
All about drawing connections between things that are seemingly unrelated.
Think across
Contribute.
silos.
Everything's connected. I am not in that camp. Beliefs.
Contribute. When you look deeper, everything is interrelated.
I am not in that camp.
All about drawing connections between things that are seemingly unrelated.
Everything's connected. I am not. Everything's connected. Everything's connected. I am not in that camp.
But when you look deeper, everything is interrelated.
Everything's connected. Everything's connected.
No, it doesn't come up, but I'm really concerned about climate change because I think that sometimes we are not observing that issue. And I notice that the weather is getting weird.
Rainy areas are going to shift poleward and leave deserts in the mid-latitudes.
We don't know how bad climate change is going to be in terms of impact.
Local people provide kind of ground truth. All about drawing connections between things that are seemingly unrelated, but when you look deeper, everything is interrelated.
In different seasons, we seem to have different kind of weather.
The warmer conditions have caused many more extensive red tides.
It melts when the planet warms.
At least we don't know if
Our
it's
body's a source of wisdom.
Different explanation for something you said. Rainiest events are getting even stronger.
In the end, we do seem to pull together at the 11th hour and try.
We're not walking race on the street. We're like, you have a body.
Climate change is what we would call a global common pool resource, which means what happens in the United States influences everybody else around the world.
But it's definitely a stressor when your population is hungry because their fields are not producing.
They just want reassurance or they want to express themselves.
I think any scientist has to be open to seeing the world in a completely different way.
I mean, in my opinion, but I'm not a climate person. But I know it seems like there's a drastic change in weather.
You have to be able to envision things that are.
It's going to get worse. That's enough. And then you can fill in. And there's testing situations where there's like no lights outside. It's that like, if I had numbers, it would be like this decision. But really, it's actually that it's a really popular decision when you speak to us.
Creating that animation is a whole body literature of science. Our body is a source of wisdom.
We are less reminded, less frequently reminded about the role we play in this interconnected international system.
People rely on those rainfall patterns for livelihoods, and how even just a minute change in those impacts to
International factors tend to be perceived as less important when we make decisions. On the other hand, especially when it comes to global climate change, we do look at issues globally, unfortunately, especially when we want to find excuses why not to do something.
And so small changes are generally negative.
This interconnected international system
is very helpful for me. I've seen a lot of change over the 20 years. I've been involved. I think at first people were concerned because it was hard to fathom.
Climate change is what we would call a global common pool resource, which means what happens in the United States influences everybody else around the world.
Stark, but extremely beautiful at the same time. Sea ice in particular is quite flat. So you stand on it.
You think across silos and interests.
You see the places that we hear about in the news these days. And so once you have that firsthand,
our body is a source of wisdom.
So it's a really
I know when I was growing up down in the Great Harbor, we have all that home for
Our body is a source of wisdom. 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 Our body is a source of wisdom.
When I started out many years ago, we were fighting for fishing rights. And then we were ruled against when we went to court to claim our fishing rights in the Duwamish River. Our tribe and several other tribes were ruled against in the Judge Boat case. And we lost our right to fish in the river, which is disgusting. And they blamed it on the judge who was losing it, and we don't know if he was losing or not, but he signed off, and we lost our fishing rights. And which is sad for my brother and my cousin and many men who are fishing, not only in the Duwamish River and Lake Washington and Puget Sound. They had, if they could, they went to other tribes if they could enroll, and that's what my brother did. See, we're part Suquamish, and so my brother said, I'm leaving, I'm going to go, you have to take over because I'm going to, well, got to take over. He said, I'm going to enroll, and my cousin too, many of our people enrolled in Suquamish tribe to have the right to fish. And so even though he lived on this side of the water, he was able to fish and provide for his family. Oh, water's important to the Americans, I mean, to survive drinking water, but also the right to fish, even though people weren't allowed to fish, I'm sure they did fish. Now we're talking about a long time ago this happened to our people, at least in the 70s. And, but water is very important, and I'm just dismayed that today the Indigenous tribe is a superfund, which means it's polluted, but it didn't take just several years for that to happen. You gotta sort of, the people and the companies are along the Duwamish River help do that situation today. And but we have the Duwamish Coalition people who are advocating and doing that work on behalf of the Duwamish River. Yes. Well, without water, you don't have to eat, but if you have water, you're going to sustain yourself and go through the day.
What if we took that as our starting point? Those moments of breakdown. Being kind of overwhelmed. By our emotional response. Is fear an effective strategy? Does despair actually move people to action? There's a sense of urgency and almost panic. To rush and to act. I think not taking the time to pause and reflect has gotten us in a lot of trouble up to this point. There are circumstances that must shatter you. And if you are not shattered, then you have not understood your circumstances. In such circumstances, it is a failure for your heart not to break. And it is pointless to put up a fight, for a fight will blind you to the opportunity that has been presented by your misfortune. Do you wish to persevere pridefully in the old life? Of course you do. The old life was a good life. But it is no longer available to you. It has been carried away irreversibly. So there is only one thing to be done. Transformation must be met with transformation. Where there was the old life, let there be the new life. Do not persevere. Dignify the shock. Sink so as to rise.
The antidote to despair is agency.
I want to be part of a solution to this whole thing, not part of the problem.
Diversity is our wealth. The diversity of anything on this earth is our wealth. are directly interconnected, interrelated. We are receiving life every single moment by the generosity and the unconditional love of this planet and the elements, the living elements, the spiritual elements that have a life, that can be spoken to, prayed to, that respond to us, to a language that comes from feeling, through a language that comes from a sensitivity.
We really want to shape the future where we're able to have a clean transition and ensure that the people who are most impacted are also included in that process.
The water is so generous and so loving, and when you think of the water on the top of the mountain coming down the mountainside, through the rivers, through the streams, the creeks, the underground rivers, through the rain, through the snow, the water gives to all life equally. The water does not decide that these ones are worthy and these ones are not. This water has been everywhere on the planet, and in and out of different beings throughout time. We must stand with the water. We must see that we're all connected, that it's not just Washington. We're all connected. We're all related. Together we have a lot of power. And so there is hope. There is hope. And so our work is important.
Are we finding room?
Thank you, everyone, for coming. We appreciate it. Let's just give them one more round of applause. I know, they're gone. Applause for Karin Stevens. Come take your bow. Applause for the beautiful set. If you can, we invite you to stay for a little post-show talk. If not, you're free to go. We would ask that you maybe come down a little bit, and if you're on the stage, now's your time to escape, or you can come out into the house, and that way the panel can sit up front. Thank you again so much, everyone. Check out our Gonzaga Dance schedule for the fall. We have a lot of exciting things. We appreciate you. All right. Thank you for staying. We promise not to keep you too long. Yeah, they're all, yeah, we can move. Well, Maria wanted us in the light, so I promised her we would stay on the Marley. Yeah, okay. So our plan for our panel is, I guess we'll introduce ourselves first, and then Brian's going to lead us through some questions, and then we're happy to take questions. So if you haven't heard enough of me already, I'm Cynthia Gutierrez, the chair of dance here at Gonzaga.
Brian Henning, I'm the director of the Gonzaga Institute for Climate, Water, and the Environment.
Karin Stevens, I'm the artistic director and choreographer for this work.
Nigel D'Souza, I am an assistant professor in the Biology and Environmental Studies department.
And you would hear Nigel's voice in the work. And
which sounded really good loud.
Brian's.
So one of the questions I wanted to start us off with is to give Karin, I wanted to ask if you could share a little bit, since it had a little hiatus, what happened in the years since when you envisioned it and revisiting it, what changed about you or the work, if anything? What did you bring to it, or what did you find in it that you didn't the first time? I'm not sure, open-ended, but...
There's a lot I could say just about this work in particular. How did COVID change everything? Well, things have gotten a lot more dire. And the first time I did it, I didn't have the ability to bring as many voices into the work. And I wanted to make this as least abstract as possible. So there were certain sections where I added more layers of voices. We had, 500 school children here today. I wanted anyone, the mechanic down the street, anyone to be able to understand what was going on and why, because everything in this work is very important. And I had time to dig in artistically as well. It is a luxury to be able to go back. People said a lot of great things about this work, but it could have been even better, and from a choreographic standpoint. And I commissioned all the music, particularly the string quartet music. I really had a chance to go and be with the scores and really dig in and create and choreograph in a way. I was creating this fast and furious the first time. And I run my own company, which means I do all the fundraising, I do all the marketing. And when Cynthia says the arts are, how did you say it? Endangered. Yeah, it's no joke. There is very little funding. This has been a labor of love that I could not walk away from, although I wanted to many times, because the infrastructure around the arts, and dance in particular, is so poor. But as you can see, I have a deep passion and a love for why I think it matters to speak through the body.
Thank you, Karin. Nigel, I thought the nicest thing I could do would be just to give you an opportunity to say more about what I think I heard you say in the piece, which was something like, at a certain point, ideology won't matter, it'll just be a matter of survival. And obviously that was taken out of a long conversation that you had with Karin. But on the note of things being dire, and as a philosopher, I think that word ideology is very interesting to me. So I just wanted to give you a chance as a biologist and as a scholar to fill in more. What do you have in mind? What would you say more about that?
Okay, so let's see. I didn't want it to sound too doom and gloom in this whole thing, but the idea over here was, as an aquatic scientist, something that I run into frequently is change in water flows and sea level rise, right? And so, change in flow of rivers and sea level rise. And something we look at is in the Indian subcontinent, for example, the disappearing glaciers that feed the rivers in India, China, and Bangladesh. When you look at that population that is affected by it, that is a very, very large chunk of the global population. that is now going to have to move and figure out how to survive. And what that means is those people are going to start competing with groups that they currently don't compete with. Same thing with sea level rise. If you look at cities like Shanghai, Mumbai, New York, all of these places that are going to be affected by sea level rise, when you have to relocate those millions and millions of people, those people are going to move into areas that already may be stressed out at that point. And so when that starts to happen, it doesn't really matter how we think about politics. It doesn't really matter, religion doesn't really come into play, ideology doesn't come into play. It really comes down to, do we have food to eat? Do we have space to live? Do we have healthcare? Things like that. And it changes interactions among people. And that should be concerning. And so rather than kind of be caught up in this whole divide between one ideology and another, I think we should think about ways in which we can connect rather than kind of see differences. Sorry, that's long-winded.
That was the most words I've ever heard you say. That was good. Actually, thank you sincerely. We're slowly bringing him in over to the humanities side. It's not his comfort zone. Just like this is not my comfort zone in dance. So we're all doing things that are uncomfortable for us. Cynthia, one of the lines within Western philosophy from Plato to Descartes is this idea that there's a separation of the mind and the body. And within certain Christian traditions on that side of the thread, the body's bad, on top of it frequently. And one of the things that really was as watching this, especially for the second time, I'm starting to get more, is this wonderful expression of the embodiment of ourselves as beings, and then the connection of that two ideas. Rather than seeing them as separate and then just picking another side and saying, well, there's reason and then there's body, and so dance is just body and you leave your mind behind. I thought this was a great sort of opportunity to see those together. And so as someone who leads our dance program, what is your thought about that?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it's so lucky, we feel so lucky here at Gonzaga because it's part of the mission, again, this cura personalis, the whole body. And it's really what we try to do in dance all the time. But I don't know that it's always successful. Karin and I were joking earlier about remember when we were in college and we would never say anything, it's just a different time. And I think that the dance field wants to celebrate this mind-body-spirit connection, and I think we are probably closer there than we ever have been in terms of the pedagogy of it. I think the creative process has always been there, but I think being able to work with these young dancers and have that such a precious position of being an educator to them, it's so valuable, and I take it really seriously, and it's the biggest privilege. I'm a professional choreographer, and I make big projects like this, and really for me to be able to remind our students on a daily basis that it isn't just the body, but it is the mind and the spirit. But telling them that is one thing, but actually facilitating and cultivating and caring for that, that's intentional work, right? And that's what we do all the time. And it's a process. I mean, I have my first group of freshmen. Some of them are on stage tonight, and they're, I'm the new chair this year, and so I'm a freshman in a way. And so I feel like I'm so excited to watch them grow. But I think it's less about what you impose on them and more about what you provide, the opportunities like this that you provide for them, and you encourage agency and expression, physically, verbally, all the things. So I don't know, every class comes through and it's different. I've been doing this for so long, but it is a great privilege to be able to I think of it as a collaboration with them and being in partnership with them as they grow. And so, and I have students, who are now in their 20s and 30s. I'm not dating myself, hopefully, but that return to me in some ways via Instagram or emails or phone calls or texts, and that is the real reward, So the investment, it's a long game, but I think the way that, and it changes because what I had to do as an educator even 15 years ago feels different than right now. So the reminder of the mind-body-spirit connection, and it can't just be words, it has to be like lived out and practiced in class every day in the community that you build. And I think that my students would say that I try to create that, but it's, you know, it's always, it changes all the time, as the world does, so.
I was strong feeling that Karin wants to answer this question too.
Yeah,
and I'm going to give her an opportunity, and then I'm going to come out into the crowd. So I have a feeling you would like to respond to that. I could. I don't know you that well, but I could tell that Karin wants to respond to that. And then I'm going to come down, and so if anybody has a question, I'll come to you.
Yeah, we were talking earlier about how we grew up studying dance or being taught dance, but yeah, I did not live this way for most of my life until, I don't know, sometime in my early 30s. Whether it was the mind over body classical ballet training, or having a militaristic father, or a Catholic mother, and you know I spoke earlier, I have great admiration for many Catholics. The boxes that were put in our classrooms, I became very much a head colonizing a body, which is one of my teachers, a healer teacher would say. And I also like the phrase that we've become heads on stacks of books, or even heads on a phone now, right? And so I sometime, like I said, early 30s, mid 30s, I started to go into my bodily self. And I started to learn to move in new ways, to actually overcome the ways I had learned to move in spite of being a trained dancer. So it was not just from the perspective of being a dancer, but actually as a human being. So I had to learn to move in new ways, to overcome the ways in which I wasn't moving in my greatest health. I wasn't moving in my greatest relationship with who I truly am and what it means to cultivate that sense of the heart and self-love. And it actually transformed my spiritual life as well and made me a very interfaith person. But I very much am passionate about bringing us back into our bodily selves. I'm very close friends with a dance philosopher, Kimmer Lamotte, who wrote a beautiful book about how dance, or just movement is probably a better way to think about it as humans, is how we have evolved. It's how we evolve, that matter is not matter, movement is what makes matter. It is how we learn to think and know that we weren't meant to just sit in a chair and think, therefore I am. And the body, from the soles of the feet, you know, out through the hands and our back space and breathing with the air. And if anyone has ever been stuck and gone out for a walk and suddenly your ideas start to flow, it's that I could just go on and on and on. I'll stop, Brian. Thank you.
Thank you, Karin. Any questions from the crowd? This is your chance. Leah said mistakenly, she's now regretting, that she had questions, but I think that was idle conversation after enjoying the show. But I could come to you if you were sincerely. All right, well done. Leah, introduce yourself if you would, and your affiliation, if you wouldn't mind.
Hi, thank you for the wonderful show. My name is Leah, and I'm a climate literacy fellow here with the Climate Institute. That was incredible. I think I have the science part of me wants to ask what animals and organisms all the movements represented, and then I think the other part of me has a question for you, Karin, about how did you start to reconnect with the wisdom and hope and healing in your body, coming from someone who doesn't know how she would start to do that?
So the first question was about what scientific or biological aspects of ideas in the work, is that?
Which movements in particular represented maybe which organisms, I think was part of the question. If there were some, because I think with the kids you mentioned that some movements represented some animals.
Yeah, well they come out, the salmon emerged first in the, you see reflections of it in the very beginning, but I went and studied all the different fins of a salmon, and I abstracted it, so there's one up above, there's one down below, I love this one, it's called the anal fin, but it's at their knees, and flexed feet and turned, and I'm out on a boat a lot because I race sailboats, and you'll just see a fish just emerge for a moment, and I live near Carkeek Park, where the chum come up every November, and they will just chill for a while. And then all of a sudden, so you'll see moments of these kind of gestures. And then, of course, I'm sure you saw the male orca and the female orca fin. The kids loved repeating that, actually, today in the show. I do love to nerd out on the ice. I interviewed an ice scientist. You can hear her voice in there, and I was really struck by what she said about the interaction of the waves with the ice and how it was like breathing. And so that's, if you saw, there was a lot of breath use in that, but also, as everyone knows, especially if you make soup and you put it in jars and you didn't leave enough room, that it will expand and break the glass in your freezer. I forgot about that when I grew up and learned that. And so ice reaches its freezing point and it expands. So if you saw the expanding of ice, and then also things like in sea ice, there'll be pockets of air that get trapped in the ice, and there'll be water, actually. So I don't know if you saw halfway through the middle part, there were trios, and there was a movement of the water. And anyways, I could go on and on and on about tides. The most dancey section, when they're going around the installation like this, that's based on 3 kinds of tides. And I hired the composer that made that music because she's a scientist at heart and big scholar. And so she, the first one, I think, if I remember right, is based on the kind of tides that I am used to, which is a double tide, a high, and a low, and 2 lows, 2 highs, and then there's around the world 1 low, 1 high, and then there's a bull tide, which comes up a river, which was the very last section. Anyway, so I just dig this stuff. But the other question was?
Yes, and I won't say it as well as Leah did, but I think Leah's an environmental science student, was wondering about reconnecting to one's body. How do you do that, or did you do that, or do you have any advice? I'm not sorry if I'm putting words into your mouth, Leah.
There's so many things I can say about that, but it's layered. Honestly, Chinese medicine and acupuncture was a big part of that in my 20s, and then I revisited it again in my 30s. There was this contrast. The paradox for me was I lived in this beautiful land in Seattle, near downtown, but on the water, and I spent so much time outside, but then I'd go inside to the boxes, to the ballet classroom or the schoolroom, but I actually returned to that finally, I don't know when it was, where I started dancing outside and reconnecting my body in relationship to the moving world. Hakomi is a beautiful psychosomatic therapy. Sufi spiritual healing has been another layer. But also just simply, I guess I would say this, when I was done with graduate school, somewhere around 30, I knew I'm still not quite right here. Something is just, there are too many things that are restricting me, both emotionally and physically. And I started practicing the brain dance, which is Anne Green Gilbert's, and I know they know the brain dance here. And there are just these 8 patterns of movement that Anne Green Gilbert brought to her teaching. Mostly it started with children, but I bring it to adults now, and it's these 8 patterns that we must go through from 0 to 18 months to develop fully, and it repatterns your nervous system. It helps to start unwind things. It could go on and on. It helps kids learn to read that had trouble reading. If they missed crawling, it revisits the aspect of cross-lateral and can help repattern the brain in ways that would help them read, etc.
Maybe just one last question, if you'll indulge me. Toward the end of the piece, there's one of the narrators interviewees was saying that sometimes it was something about being able to affect what questions people are willing to hear. And so I was just curious if you would say why or whether you think art can change what questions people are willing to hear. I think that's such a wonderful combination of words. Can art change what questions people are willing to hear? If so, how?
Yeah, that's Nevis Dolchek. She's at the University of Washington. She was one of the interviewees I did in 2018 when I collaborated with a journalist. She's the one that starts the ideology, and she was I think she is a policy influencer as well. She was very enthusiastic back then about art and art having an impact. rephrase your question again, because I don't know. I just know that
because
it's
it's about unity, and we need more unity and not ideology. And so if part of the problem is that people can't even hear questions, like there's that some people we can't even hear certain kinds of questions or hear other certain kinds of views. So that to me that represented the idea that you can't even hear a question, right? That's even worse than, you can't even start a conversation because you can't even hear a question from some people, or certain kinds of questions. So I was trying to use that as a placeholder for whether art can create, opportunities for crossing divisions and other sorts of things, which is that's just an easy throwaway question.
I know. I mean, you would like it to, but I'm a realist too. We've talked a little bit about family members, and I'm aware that someone could have gotten shut down early on in the work when it came to talking about the Snake River dams. For those of you that might be from the east side of Washington State, it's a bit more controversial over here than those of us over on the western side who love the southern resident Orca. And so I'm very aware that people feel strongly about, I think they've been fed the wrong information, but they feel strongly about the agricultural side of things and the use of the barging. But the reports are clear, non-politicized reports. But I don't know. I don't know. All I know is I was this little girl who loved to dance and loved the natural world, and I had a father who started listening to the other side and being. I remember in high school the tree huggers and the kind of cynical wording around that, and the spotted owl issue in the 90s, and for me personally, it's been a journey of continuing to open my heart to a deeper, more wider and spacious love, to be able to keep engaging, to set some boundaries too. I was really hoping that person I love would be here tonight, but he couldn't. So, it lives personally for me. I don't know if this work of art would change my family members' views, but I was made this way to keep making this work and to keep doing this kind of thing in the world, which is to make art and hope that it does. It's painful sometimes, but go ahead.
It's your house, Cynthia. We'll give you the last word.
It might not.
I mean, as a choreographer myself who makes work rooted in cultural perspectives and social justice, one of the things that I have in my bio or mission statement somewhere is this very thing that I feel that when people can watch or see art that is around an issue that's very divisive. I've recently made work around the ICE, immigration controversies. And I go to it to make it, not to change people's minds, but to process for myself with my dancers and to give voice to the people who have no voice. And then my hope is that when people see it, and this kind of takes us back to our mind-body-spirit connection, that maybe if someone's out there who sees the issue as so clear, so black and white, so why would you see this? But maybe if they're seeing moving bodies on stage with lights and music and set, maybe somehow they'll settle into their, they'll have a visceral response that they won't even know what that is because they're not a trained mover, but maybe somehow there's a connection there that will soften them. And then maybe, I've had people at my shows and we do these talkbacks and, people will make comments and cry at the end. Like, I'm not necessarily, aiming to make people cry. I want them to enjoy their time, but to me that means something, that something touched them in a way that my words could not. And so I think there is power in that, and maybe it's slow and maybe it won't happen instantly, but I think that whoever came tonight will walk away with some deeper appreciation, understanding, something that will, I don't know, I want to hope that it would cause even just a slight delay in the quick response that they might have had, because now they've seen the humanity of the thing. And that's what we do, right, as choreographers and dancers. We try to invoke that. And so, I don't know, that would be my contribution to the conversation.
was a great response.
Thank you all for coming. We're holding another event. The Climate Institute is collaborating with the theater department in a few weeks. And so please come to those shows. There will be 10 plays. Nigel's partner is working, directing some of them, and Leslie Susmoulis the others. And so come to the Magnuson Theater in a few weeks for some climate action plays. It should be fantastic. But thank you to all the dancers, to Karin for sharing your art, and please support the arts. Please support the arts. Thanks.
Thank you.